Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis 33b. The line starts with the word V'chad Amar, the Leslu Shkufi, and then Amar Rabbi Bar Shila. It's in between the small dal and the small hey in the text. So as a kind of way of intro for the next, say, 15 lines or so of the Gemara, that it discusses different the awkward living spaces, if you will. They either serve two living spaces, or they're kind of living spaces, say gardens, balconies, verandas, things like that. That's going to be the general discussion. And the way the Gemara is going to set it out now, it almost seems like it should require, it's clear from the Gemara the way it's set out here, that it should require mezuzah. That's the way the Gemara is going to assume. And every time the Gemara says it doesn't, the Gemara is going to find like a reason why it's not. And yet, as Taisus points out, that elsewhere in the Gemara, it says the reverse, that they don't get mezuzahs. And the two Gemaras the Gemara here nor the Gemara there reconciles between the two. And therefore Taisus says that there, when the Gemara assumes that all these different awkward rooms, we'll define them as we go along, don't get a mezuzah, because they're not proper living spaces, it's not your proper home. It's a guardhouse, it's an entrance to a veranda, it's a garden or something like that. Taisus says those are talking about, biblically speaking. Biblically speaking, it's not required mezuzah. And here, when the Gemara assumes it is, it's rabbinic. This is Taisus' reconciliation. Others disagree with that. And others say that if it's open to a home, and that's what the Gemara means here, that all of these things lead to homes, and therefore, because even though the room itself is awkward, because it leads to a home, it's considered like an outer entrance to the home, and therefore it is obligated mezuzah, even biblically. And the bottom line is, because of this confusion, and because there's more than those two opinions that I just mentioned, the Shulchan Aruch concludes that because of the doubt, you put it up without a bracha. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because even though there's more versions to the Gemara, meaning we're going to go with one version of understanding the Gemara. Even Rashi has two versions. But we're going to go with one version of reading this Gemara, of understanding what each of these rooms are. And the reason why I'm not going through all of them is because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, and halachically speaking. Precisely because of all the confusion as to what exactly these things mean, we come to the same conclusion. It's a doubt, put it up without a bracha. Unless you know for sure that the room you're going to is a room that goes to a living space. A home, proper living space. That's the bottom line. In very short, of course, the details are complicated, but that's the general principle. That unless you know the door you're walking through is a door that takes you into a proper living space, the mezuzah that you're going to put there is is required by doubt, and therefore no bracha. This is the general principle. I'm missing some details, but this is the general principle. Is that somewhat clear?
Yeah.
Kind of introduction.
So practically speaking,
yeah,
you're moving into a new house.
Yeah.
God willing. So you have one of those doubtful areas, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, when we do put up mezuzahs, you make a bracha. That one bracha covers all the rooms.
So what's the difference?
So when you come to that area, you just put up the mezuzah. You have it in mind before that. You're not the bracha. No. You just don't do that room. Do it another time and put it up without a bracha.
Actually, I would do that room right then, and I would specifically have in mind that the bracha I made there should cover it, just in case it is required to make a bracha. But the only time it really comes into play is either if you have build a new room like that, or if your mezuzah falls down, you're required to make a bracha when you put it back up. If you take it down with the intention of checking it, and you don't find anything wrong, then you don't make a bracha. Same thing with like a talis. When you take off your talis knowing you're going to put it back on, you don't make a bracha. If a talis falls off, you do make a bracha. Because when you took it off, when it came off, nothing attaches it to the previous time you put it up, because it fell off unintentionally, right? So this is the only time it will come in play, is if this mezuzah fell off, don't make a bracha when I put it back up. Or if I went to check it and it came out to be not kosher and I have to put a new one up, don't make a bracha there or not. That would be the only time that such a issue would arise. Otherwise, you would, when you're putting up your house to begin with, you would find the door that is obligated to make a bracha, make that bracha and cover all the doors, even the ones that are, specifically the ones that are in doubt, because you're not sure.
I just mentioned yesterday we talked more about intended use of the space rather than livable space. But are those?
It's a similarly connected discussion.
Similarly connected, but they're not exactly the same. Because
before we define,
it could be an intended use place, but not necessarily. Well, I guess
it's connected, but here's the thing. Yeah, there are some. Here's the distinction. In yesterday's case, the original rooms were built for a living space, but because of some mistake, there's a hole in the roof. It wasn't fulfilling its mandate. Here, we're talking about rooms to begin with that are built in this awkward thing. In other words, it's a veranda. So, what's its intention? Livable or not livable? I don't know. Maybe, kind of, sort of. Same thing with a garden. Same thing with a guardhouse. Meaning, it's living out its purpose. But its purpose is in doubt. A bedroom is meant to be a living space. If there's a hole in the roof, so it's not living up to its own standard.
The guardhouse.
A guardhouse is living up to a standard. It's a guardhouse.
It's being used for its intended
but
purpose.
Is its intended purpose
is it
enough? That's right. So is its intended purpose enough to make you required mezuzah? That's the distinction between yesterday and today. Whereas yesterday, it's a question of whether or not the room is living up to its own standard.
Right.
Whereas today, the room is living up to its own standard. But the question is that standard enough to make you required mezuzah?
And the conclusion is that it's
it's a doubt. There's different opinions. The conclusion is there's different opinions, different gemaras, and therefore you put it up without a bracha. That's the conclusion from most of the things that we're going to discuss today.
But you said that if you know for sure it's a livable,
if it's
then you would make the bracha.
Yeah. So if it's a guardhouse that. If it's a guardhouse that was right out attached to a home that is required mezuzah, right?
That would require it then.
Then it says over here. It also says you make a bracha you do without a bracha. Why no bracha? Oh, because it doesn't have tikra. I almost got it going again. No, I believe you are. I'm looking for this here. If it's a guardhouse that is directly attached to a home, and the guardhouse serves it serves the home and it's an entranceway through which you get to the home, then I believe it is obligated mezuzah, even with a bracha. All right. Yeah.
Because I guess it'd be considered part of the home.
Yeah, it's an extension of the home. Yeah, so you are obligated mezuzah.
Let's say there's a guardhouse for a community of homes.
That's where such a question would come.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to see in a minute. Okay, it's going to come up when we have a guardhouse that serves both the house and a garden. The garden is not obligated mezuzah. The house is obligated mezuzah. So what do we consider the guardhouse doing? Serving the garden or serving the house? And that would depend on where you put mezuzah. Okay. Having said that, in other words, I'm priming you for confusion, and that's the point. Now we're going to make it clear, but I'm just telling you there's more to the story, because as I said, we're going to stick to one version, but you should know there's others, and all the other versions lead to the same conclusion, that when it remains a doubt, and no beracha. So where is it again? Okay. Amar Rabbi Bar Shila, Rabbi son of Shila says, Amar Chizda, Rabbi Chizda. Achsadra loosely translates as a veranda or a courtyard. Now, Achsadra is defined by, it's a building that has 3 walls, but no official door to enter. It's just no fourth wall. No fourth wall, you just walk right in. Even if it has a roof. So, Turman mezuzah does not require mezuzah. Why? Says this tradition from Rabbi Bar Shila in the name of Rav Chizda, because it has no poles or pillars holding up. On the fourth wall is completely open. There's no pillars, so therefore there's no trace of a door. It's just missing a wall. So the Gemara asks, "Hayesh lo petzimin?" Are you suggesting that if it did have poles, chayav it would be obligated in mezuzah? Is that what you're suggesting? That the presence of poles holding up that instead of that fourth wall, holding up their roof makes it obligated in mezuzah? You with me? Yeah. So says the Gemara, L'chizuk tikruhu davidi. Those poles are not there to make it into a door. They're just there so that the roof doesn't fall in. So why would the presence of poles make that into a door? Says the Gemara, Hachikam, this is what it means to say. The statement, as we originally had it, should read as follows. Even though it has poles, because it doesn't have a proper door, it's just missing a fourth wall, it's exempt from mezuzah. Why? Because they're only there to hold up the roof. So, the way you imagine it when I describe it, I don't know what you're imagining, but you imagine a bear, just bare wood walls and beams. But if you think about ancient Roman structures, that's a very common entrance to a building. Before you get to the actual doors of the building, right? There's like this, a lot of times I think this big, huge thing popping out with these columns in the front, and sometimes there's a wall on the side. So it has 3 walls, at the back of which is a door to the building, but you're walking through 4 or 5 huge columns to get into, I don't know, imagine the Jefferson,
it's like a portal.
Yeah, I think they call it a
like an antechamber?
Portico. That's the word, portico. It looks, you imagine it like I think the Jefferson Memorial is like that, right? Has 4 walls and the front is just columns. Isn't that right? I think so.
A lot of that architecture in Jefferson.
And I'm talking about in DC. DC.
Right, yeah, I think that's true.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't it like just 3 walls and the front is columns?
You walk up some stairs and then you have these columns but there's no door. You just
walk right through.
Yeah.
Right. So even though there's columns there, it's not a door. That's the Gemara saying. Okay. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Chazinalahu, I've seen Li'is Plidi, I think that's pronounced the word, the Beimar. I've seen the Achsadra. The Splidi is another word for Achsadra. I don't know what is a different word, maybe at different times it had to use different words. But this kind of, what was the word you used? The portico?
Portico.
Portico. I saw the portico of master, meaning Rabbi, the person who raised him. The Islu Patsimi, it had columns or poles on that 4th missing wall. The less than mezuzah, and it didn't have a mezuzah. Kasavar, so clearly Rabbi was of the view that Lachizik Tikrohu Davidi, that these poles don't serve as a door, but rather just serve to hold up the roof, and thus no mezuzah is lacking a door. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an example based on the introduction. I said you can describe this in 2 ways. You can either say that it's an independent portico, and that's why it's not required in mezuzah, or you might say that even though it's attached to a home, it's not required in mezuzah. And this is where the issue comes up. What's the one we're talking about here? Is this a portico that leads to a home or not? And this is where all these questions arise, leaving with the conclusion that mezuzah with no bracha. One can imagine it in 2 ways. Actually, I don't know if it applies here because there's no door, but even so, I believe it's still. It seems at least from Tosfos that even so. Have a good day.
I gotta open it.
All right.
Is it similar to the hallway here where there's arches?
Yeah.
But there are no mezuzahs there.
Except for the first ones and the last one.
Okay.
The first one and the last one. And I'm not so convinced it's required anyway. I asked my father once about it. He says, it's in doubt, so I put it up. In other words, one might imagine that the first archway is an entrance to the general hallway. The other archways are just designed clearly. But the first one might be considered a door.
Okay.
So you put a mezuzah there, although I'm not convinced that biblically speaking it's required, and I don't think if it fell down you'd make a bracha. Not convinced. But still, you'll notice the first and last one have mezuzahs because you notice that. That's an entrance to the hallway. Or it could be imagined as such at least. Okay. So Meisvei, the Gemara raises a contradiction. So again, the word Meisvei, whenever the Gemara uses that word to introduce a question, it's a way of asking a question from a source greater than the one speaking. So here we have a sage from the Gemara's age speaking, Rav Chizda, or Abaye speaking in Rabba's name, or telling us what Rabba did, but the Gemara is not going to quote a Mishnaic age text. And as I mentioned, there's another Mishnaic age text elsewhere that says the opposite. And that's where Tosfos says one is biblical, one's rabbinic, and one's attached to a home, one's not attached to a home. That's where all the confusion comes in. But this is the text the Gemara raises here. Beisvei. The following Mishnah H text reads as follows: Beis Shar, a guardhouse. Literally, Beis Shar means a home of an entrance, meaning it's like one of those like little rooms or antechambers that are built attached to a wall. You see these most commonly when you enter into like the old ancient cities. There's always this little like building attached to the wall, and it served as a guardhouse. So I guess people had them in the front of their palaces or the front of their estates or whatever. A guardhouse. So it's kind of a livable space. It's a full room and it probably has a door, but it's not a living space. It only serves to something else. It's a guardhouse, an entranceway, right? And a lot of times these entranceways, these guardhouses weren't like you have a wall, a door. Let's say you're getting into a estate. So you have a wall with a door, and then next to it you have a little room where a guardhouse sits in. It's not the way you should imagine it. It's more like the walls of the estate end with a building right in the middle. That building has two doors, one on the front, one on the back side, and that's how you get to the inside of the estate. And inside, in between those two doors, is like a full room, and the guards would sit there. Mm-hmm. So everybody's walking through that guardhouse. That guardhouse. That's why it's called Beis Shar. It's a home. That's an entrance.
It has two purposes.
That's right. It's a room. That's an entrance. The room actually is an entrance. So everybody who comes into the building walks into that room, walks across, and opens another door and walks out the other way.
It's not a discrete.
It's right. It's not a separate. That's right. It's not like I have an entrance here and then somebody else sits in this little booth down the hall, down the.
Separated from the house.
Exactly. That's what's called Beis Shar. It's a home that is also an entrance. It's both. And this is again why all this confusion comes up, because it's only a service to something else, and therefore the question of what's it serving.
Right.
And is the thing it's serving required mezuzah, thus changing its own status? And the Gemara is not clear about what it is, and thus leaves all open for a lot of interpretation from the various different commentaries. But nonetheless, so Beis Shar, a gatehouse, a home, a room that serves as an entranceway. Achsadra, this veranda, this portico, which has 3 walls only. Umarfesas, and a balcony. So it's kind of a room. It's attached to a room. So this text says, Chayav mezuzah. They are liable mezuzah.
I'm sorry?
They are liable mezuzah. In Taisus' version, that's what we'll stick with, because Rashi also agrees with this. It means rabbinically. Biblically speaking, it's not required mezuzah. Let's say it's freestanding, it's not directly attached to a home. So it's only rabbinic. This is in Rashi's version. Now, so here comes the contradiction, because at least in this list of places that are required mezuzah, we have Beis Shar, we have a gatehouse, a veranda, a portico, and a balcony. And yet earlier we just said that the portico is not obligated mezuzah, because its fourth wall is not a door; it's just pillars, it's just beams to hold up the roof. So says the Gemara, B'achsada de Beirav. When we said earlier, or here when we say, that the achsadra, that the portico is required in mezuzah, it's talking about the porticos that were attached to the study halls. And the way Rashi describes it, the porticos that were attached to study halls. Where is it?
You had to go through there as well.
Sorry? It had, sorry? Yeah, you had to go through it. But here's the main point, is that they were built as such that they had 4 walls. It did have 4 walls. But the walls were very low and didn't make it to the roof.
Okay.
So it was like the wall was halfway. And the top half was open air. So it's kind of a room. Kind of has 4 doors.
It doesn't have a roof per se.
It has a roof.
It
doesn't have walls attached all the way to the roof. The walls only go halfway up, let's say.
Yeah,
quarter way up, third way up, whatever it is. So it says the Gemara, and those are the kinds of porticos that are required mezuzah. The ones that have 4 walls, but the walls that won't reach to the roof.
Uh-huh.
That's what the Gemara is suggesting at the moment. The Gemara says the Beirav. Are you talking about Achsadid Beirav? You're talking about the porticos that are attached to the study halls. That's a proper room. Just because it's missing half the wall doesn't make it not a proper room. It's got 4 walls. It's a normal room. And a door, obviously.
And the ceiling. Yeah.
And a ceiling. So it's a good room.
Same applies to sukkah, by the way. Same principle for a sukkah.
That's right. A sukkah that has 4 walls don't make it to the roof.
Yes,
It has to, as long as it's not a certain distance. It's considered a kosher sukkah, because apparently that's a normal room. When you live in Montreal and it's freezing half the year, maybe a room with half a wall doesn't work so well. But if you're living in Babylonia where it's nice and warm, or if you're living in Florida with hurricanes, it doesn't work. But I guess if you're living in Babylonia, it's nice. You have half the roof is airspace, and if half the walls are airspace, and if your roof is wide enough, rain doesn't even come in. So why not? I guess. But the Gemara says that that's a normal room, and thus there would be no need for the Mishnah to teach me, a portico requires mezuzah, if all it's talking about is a normal room that has walls halfway up. Says the Gemara, okay, no, we're talking about a different kind of portico. Misa, the Roman porticos. What's the Roman portico? Says Rashi, they are porticos that are made with very, very large windows. So it's even less wall than the walls that go halfway up of the porticos outside the study halls. So the porticos are the walls outside this. The porticos that were outside the study halls had proper walls on all four sides. Only the walls only went halfway up. Whereas these Roman porticos, in the way Rashi describes it here, even though there's others elsewhere, but the way Rashi describes it here, these porticos were like majority windows.
Windows meaning just open space.
Open air. Yeah, not like glass. Not glass. Windows means just open. Yeah. So I guess you could imagine it like it was basically a bunch of square.
Basically pillars. Space.
It's almost
widely spaced.
It's almost widely spaced pillars with a slab on the bottom, slab on the top, making it into a square frame. So a bunch of square frames is what constitutes the walls. Uh-huh. So that's considered in Rashi's view even less of a wall than the walls of the study hall, and therefore this Mishnah comes to tell you that even that one requires mezuzah because it's still considered it's still considered 4 walls. But if it only had 3 walls and the 4th one were just beams holding up the roof, no mezuzah. That's the way Rashi would understand this Gemara here. Okay, a few more lines. Amar Rachava says, Amar Rav Huda Rav Huda. Bei Harziki, a building or structure known as Bei Harziki. Rabbi Steinzelt says that the language of Bei Harziki comes from some word in Greek which means like a jail, apparently. So Bei Harziki chayev b'shtei mezuzahs, requires 2 mezuzahs. Okay, well, my Bei Harziki, what's a Bei Harziki? Can you describe what the building looks like? How many rooms are there? How many doors are there? Why 2 mezuzahs? What's it teaching me? Yeah. So Amar Papa Saba, the elder of Papa said, Mishmei de Rav, the name of Rav, said as follows: that what's a Bei Harziki? Beis Shar, it is a gatehouse, a guardhouse, which means everybody goes through that room to get into the structure, into this estate. And a Pasuach. Now this Beis Shar, this gatehouse is open to 2 different things. Lachatzer, it's open to a courtyard. Ubatim psuchim lebeis shar, and then there are homes directly attached to the gatehouse. So the gatehouse, you walk into a gatehouse.
It's in the middle then. Right?
That's correct. So you walk in, it's in the middle of this big structure.
Of 2 things, right?
Now you walk into the gatehouse, you can go 1 of 2 directions. Either you can go to the courtyard, or you can go to the home. So presumably...
It's like a connector or something.
Yeah. So how many doors does this thing have?
It's got to have at least 2, right? Or
3. 1 to get into from outside, 1 to get to the courtyard, and 1 to get to the home. So which of the 2 get the mezuzahs? Well, obviously the one that goes to the home gets 1. Where's the second one?
Well, we already said the gatehouse.
Sorry?
We said the gatehouse had 1, right?
The gatehouse will only if it serves
the home, right?
Right, over here, in other words, the Gemara here seems that it's not obligated in mezuzah.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's not really clear because before it said that it is. But why? But so it gets two mezuzahs. The way Rashi says it goes like this: one mezuzah from the home to the
gatehouse.
From the gatehouse to the home, and one from the courtyard going into the gatehouse. In other words, the primary here is the homes, and everything is slowly walking there. So the courtyard, or the gatehouse, besides for it being an entrance from the public to the home, it's also an entrance from the courtyard to the home. And thus there's a mezuzah going from the courtyard to the gatehouse, and from the gatehouse to the home. The question is, what about the mezuzah coming from the public?
What was it? Sorry.
What about the mezuzah coming from the public? What about that door? What do you think? Gets mezuzah, doesn't get a mezuzah? Rashi doesn't say so because it only says 3. It only says 2. No? What do you think?
From the public to the gate.
To the gatehouse, to the guardhouse, to the gatehouse. We're saying here that from the courtyard, you get a mezuzah going from the courtyard into the gatehouse because that serves as a slow way to get to the home. What about from the public to the court to the
courtyard?
To the gatehouse?
Ah.
The gatehouse has to have 3 doors, otherwise how are you getting in from the public? So you might say that it actually only has 2 doors. That there's one public door coming into the courtyard, and then from the courtyard you go to the gatehouse, from the gatehouse you go to the
That's how
home.
I was envisioning it.
But then why is it called a gatehouse? It doesn't come from the public anyway. Presumably it would come from the public, right?
Isn't the courtyard the public area?
Sorry?
The courtyard's not the public area?
No. So that's the thing there. So the way we could go with one way, and this is the way Steindl puts it out there. Although it's not perfectly clear in Rashi. It's not perfectly clear in Rashi, but it would seem like this: that the courthouse is more exterior than the gatehouse. So you walk in first to the courtyard, and then from there to the gatehouse, and from the gatehouse you go to the homes.
That's how I was envisioning it.
Yeah? So then in that case, you have one mezuzah going from the
Public?
courtyard
No, the courtyard
into the gatehouse, and then from the gatehouse into the homes. Right.
But not one from the public to the courtyard.
Sorry?
Not one from the public to the courtyard.
Not one from the public to the courtyard. Well, maybe yes too, but over here we're discussing the Beis Shah. We're talking about the gatehouse, because the courtyard, in and of itself, is required mezuzah. A gatehouse is only required mezuzah so long as it's serving some other thing, and here, because it's serving the homes, it gets the mezuzahs on its way into the home, from the courtyard into that gatehouse, or from the gatehouse into the home. Now, what if the gatehouse is? There's another version here from the Ran and the Ramban and others, where as we described it earlier, the gatehouse itself is attached to the public. That's the entrance, and from there you go to the courtyard, and from there you go to the home.
Right.
Yeah. So it would seem, it would seem that according to that opinion, where is it? It's somewhere here. It would seem from that opinion that from the public to the gatehouse there is no mezuzah, because the gatehouse is not a living space. But it doesn't, unless it means it's 2 mezuzahs in addition to the entrance to itself. I'm not sure. We should look that up.
Unless it's attached to the courtyard, which is a livable space, then it would be serving the courtyard, no?
Let's see. Sorry.
If the gatehouse was attached to the courtyard, it would be serving.
Well, it is. It's attached. Well, it's clearly the gatehouse is attached to both the courtyard and a home.
Well, wouldn't it
Right?
then
But the question is,
serve
what's the entrance to the actual courthouse itself, to the actual gatehouse itself? Where's that coming from? The public? So in one version, we just said, like you described it, you walk to the courtyard, from the courtyard into the gatehouse, from the gatehouse you go to the homes, and that's what it means 2 mezuzahs. One going from the courtyard into the gatehouse, and from the gatehouse to the homes. But what if the gatehouse is at the entrance? Is at the public? So the gatehouse has 3 doors then. One from the public going into itself, and one from itself to the courtyard, and one from itself to the home.
Okay.
Then what happens? Right? So let's see. Yeah. So I
Then
thought so.
one coming from the public doesn't get a mezuzah in that case?
Sorry?
The one coming from the public does not get a mezuzah?
No, when it says 2 mezuzahs, it means in addition to that.
There's 3 doors.
So I thought so. That's what the Shach says in the name of Torah, that it's in addition. In addition to the one from the public, it gets 2 also. So in other words, it gets 3, all doors.
And it's, okay.
Sorry?
Why would that third one then, that public one? Because
it's an entrance to the home. I happen to be going through a gatehouse.
All right. It's also serving.
That's right. And in this case, I believe you even make a bracha. It's directly attached to going into a home. A freestanding gatehouse, it becomes this question where it's in doubt and you do with no bracha. But here it's directly attached to a home, I believe you make a bracha. All right? Okay, have a wonderful day.
Good day.